Hello, everyone. This is Karen Grace Clark, Program Manager of GOLD Lactation Alumni Presentations, and I'm here today with Edith Kernerman. We're talking about a presentation coming up at our Alumni Presentations on January 27th called The Deleterious Effects of Timing, Scheduling, Measuring, and Recording of Infant Feeding, I guess. And Edith, I have a few questions for you that I wanted to share with our listeners about this particular presentation. The first one is, what is the research and evidence to support that feeding a baby on a schedule is a bad thing? Edith?
Well, I guess the fastest and shortest answer to that is, what is the research and evidence to support that feeding a baby on a schedule is a good thing? Remember, any time that we introduce any kind of intervention, the onus is on the intervention to prove that it is good. We are all under the whole paradigm of first do no harm. And anything that anyone or anybody, anything that introduces a new concept that is going to interrupt what is the normal physiologic way of doing things has to prove that it's okay. And it's never been proven that it's okay. In fact, we don't have a single study that's ever been done to show that scheduling or feeding a baby on a schedule is a good thing.
Excellent, excellent point there. Thank you so much for saying that, because you're right. We do tend to look at it the other way, and I think you raise a good point. So next question, lactation professionals, especially online, I know I spend a lot of time on social media, and I know you do too, and we see what the mothers are talking about. So from a maternal perspective, I know lactation professionals working with moms are getting a lot of these questions, from moms, and they're being asked about, this timing, scheduling, wondering how much is pumping better because I can see what I'm giving baby, that sort of idea. So why do you think this is happening? Why are mothers asking these questions?
It's interesting. When I see moms in the clinic, one of the first things I'm worried about, and I mention to my students all the time, is that these poor moms, they're so tired, they're sleep deprived, they're hormonal, and they are bombarded with conflicting, contradictory information. And the crazy thing is, we have to remember that we as lactational professionals are also bombarded with conflicting, contradictory information that we have to constantly process, edit, weed out, and decide what is good and what is not. There are a lot of things that come out in the popular culture that start to find a way to make babies convenient. But here's the reality. Babies are inconvenient. It's as simple as that. As wonderful and amazing and perfect as they are difficult, they are inconvenient, they are challenging, they are a lot of work. And any time that we try to make the inconvenient become convenient, we're going to have to mess with something. So what happens is we mess with the natural physiologic way that babies function, how they eat, how they sleep, how they do things, in order to make them more convenient and fit into our schedules. And so we find that popular figures out there write crazy things or talk about crazy things, like the book Baby Whisperer or Baby Wise. All of this comes from the same kind of philosophy, which was a very fundamentalist kind of philosophy that wanted to find a way to fit babies into a schedule that made them more obedient and more perfect for the parents. And thus we came up with a kind of concept called parent demand feeding, which I do talk about in my talk. So I'll have to entice you with that, to just listen into the talk and see what I talk about more specifically there. But suffice to say that there's no evidence to support any of this is good. And we do actually have some evidence and quite a few case reports to report that this kind of stuff is quite bad.
Interesting. So you raised some really good points there about, parenthood can be difficult. Babies are inconvenient. They're a whole new person. And I think what I'm hearing you say is that, a lot of these families are not only getting conflicting information, but looking for ways to manage, that new parenthood, that newborn period, where it's really hormonal and difficult and emotional, and there's all this stuff going on. And we do want to control that a little bit. We sometimes want to control our environment and try to fit it into what we understand. So you do raise a good point, and I'm really looking forward to hearing more about this parent demand feeding. That I haven't heard that term before, and I know that that's an interesting way of looking at it, and I think our listeners will really enjoy what you have to say about that. So with that in mind, why should lactation professionals care about, what's going on out there, what mothers are talking about, whether or not, timing, scheduling, measuring, feeding is good or bad? Why should they listen to this presentation, Edith?
I think simply I bring a different point of view, and I think that because we have it in almost every book that a baby should be fed 8 to 12 times in 24 hours, and we have it in every policy, and it's everywhere, I think it's important to be addressed. I'm certainly not the first lactation consultant to address it, but I think maybe it's the first time I'm bringing together some case studies and some information on that, on looking at pumping amounts, and definitely looking at how much we should be feeding a baby in a feeding by looking at test weighs. And these things are controversial, and I know that as parents want to have things made a little clearer and a little easier by having schedules and some sort of rigid, I don't mean rigid in a negative sense, but specific or particular guidelines. We as lactation professionals, sure, it's much easier if we also have such kinds of particular guidelines, be it numbers that we have to meet, be it that a protocol or a policy says you have to feed the baby X amount, X number of hours, X number of this. In a lot of ways, that kind of recording and measuring makes it easier. It certainly is easier than to record things for a chart. But is it easier for the baby? And is it healthier for the baby? And is it healthier for the mother? And I think this is something that we really need to start looking at in really great depth, that we have to become a little more mother-baby focused than I think as a culture we have been up till now. And it's time to really, truly bring it back to the mother and baby. And that means for us, it's going to be a little bit harder. We got to step back. We got to measure less. We got to time less. And certainly we're going to record less. And at the same time, I think we're all going to learn more. And most importantly, the mother is going to learn more. And who needs to know about how to breastfeed more than the mother? No one. It's her. And that's time for us to step back and let that happen.
Excellent, excellent points. Thank you so much for sharing that. And thank you so much for just sitting here with me today and answering some questions. I would like to point out to everybody listening that our live alumni presentation sessions are on January 27th of 2014, and if you can join us live online for that, just head on over to goldlactation.com and register, and we will have the recordings up online until February 13th, so if you cannot listen to the recording presentation live, that's fine. You can register anyways and enjoy the recording at your own convenience. Once again, Edith,